What's up, YouTubers and plant lovers? It's Justin once again, and today I was going to talk to you about the care of a lemon tree, more specifically a dwarf lemon tree. Unfortunately, this guy wasn't labeled when I got him, but I have reason to suspect he might be a Meyer lemon tree. Now, these citrus lemon, as their scientific name is citrus lemon, they are native, I think they were thought to originate in India, kind of like Southeast Asia, but they're typically grown in warmer areas like USDA zones 9 through 10, Italy, and places that have fairly warm, kind of moist tropical weather. They do like a good amount of rain, so they do like higher levels of humidity, and a good way to kind of indicate that you do have a dwarf variety, typically they're more bush-like in appearance. They're kind of short-statured, a little bit wider. I think these guys top out around 10 to 15, 12 feet at the highest in a pot. So keep that in mind when you're selecting a pot for it. Just like my lime tree, I got him from Home Depot. They were in these terrible pots that did not have a drainage hole in them. They were metallic, really kind of long but narrow. So when I found him, he was like his cousin, the lime tree. He was basically drowning in his soup of a kind of soupy substrate mix with all this water in there. So I rescued a couple of them. So I just wanted to talk to you about this one today. All it was labeled as was just a lemon tree. So these guys are very great plants to have. I mean, in the spring and summer, kind of when they flower, they do have really great smelling foliage and flowers. Not to mention when they fruit, I think that's around 3 to 6 years, depending on which species or tree you have. So bear in mind, they're not going to produce right as soon as you get them. This guy's probably about a year old, so I would say in the next 2 or 3 years he'll be producing fruit. And right now I got him in one of these pots. I thought, well, you know, these might be a pretty good tree to grow in a bonsai way. I'm really into bonsai, but I'm not for sure anymore. So I wanted to put him in something that can help him grow his roots. As I said earlier, he was in a soupy condition, practically drowned. So now I've got him in a terracotta pot that kind of whisks the water away out of the substrate and has a drainage hole in it. So that is very important. Never put a plant in a container that does not have a drainage hole. You will drown them. Let's go ahead and just talk about the regular care for these guys. Typically, the citrus plants, oranges, limes, lemons, they all like to be in at least 8 to 12 hours of sunlight, direct sunlight a day. So keep in mind that whenever you're going to place them, they do need a lot of sunshine in order to produce all these buds, all these flowers, and all this fruit that we demand of them. So they do need a lot of light in order to facilitate all that, and they do need a lot of water to be able to do all that as well. So make sure that they are being watered at least once a day in the hotter part of the season. And if you do have a mulch substrate on top, that will help hold in more of the water for your plant, so it won't evaporate as fast, because we know that plants in containers, they really do lose water quickly than plants in the ground. So if it is in a pot, I would make sure that you do water it at least once a day, depending on what the conditions are outside. Temperatures. These guys like it to be around no colder than 55 degrees, I would say. I guess you could get away with 50 degrees, depending on how bad, how wet it is outside, how strong the wind is kind of blowing. And, if it's going straight into summer, they might be able to stand it a little bit cooler. But if you're heading at the tail end of summer, you might not get away with really cold weather all of a sudden. That might kind of send your plant into a little bit of shock. So there are several factors when deciding temperature, but when you bring these guys in at the end of the summertime, around fall and winter. It's now August here in Kentucky, so about late August to mid-September, I'll be bringing these guys inside using my artificial light system, but they need humidity. Our houses get super hot and super bone dry, and that is not ideal conditions for these trees when they come inside. Typically, they do like warmer areas, but they do not like dry areas. They need water, so fill yourself up a pebble tray, put water in it, and make sure that the plant isn't able to kind of suck the water up, because it will, and then your plant might end up drowning itself. So make sure that the humidity is ideal for that, because that is very important. And as you can see, I just lost a leaf on here. Citrus plants are notorious for losing magnesium, and that will result in kind of discolored yellow, kind of splotchy leaves, or maybe even kind of yellow veins. So if you see any good discoloration, kind of like these older leaves kind of in the middle have right here. These newer ones up top are starting to look a lot better as I gave this guy a good watering with some Epsom salt. Magnesium sulfate was really beneficial to this plant. It's starting to curb the yellow discoloration that I've actually had with this guy. So if you do experience that magnesium deficiency, Epsom salt is pretty good. You can do about 1 to 2 tablespoons per gallon of water and just kind of water it around the roots, and your plant will absorb it, and it'll help with that. Now keep in mind, with a potted plant, they do lose nutrients way quicker than any other plant that is probably planted in your yard or just in the dirt in general. Now gravity kind of works against them, and as you water it, stuff will fall to the bottom and just kind of wash out the drainage holes. But you do need a drainage hole, so that is very important. You're just going to have to add and fertilize monthly. That is preferred. Now, what I did with my substrate, there are several different ones out there that take care of substrate for citrus trees, so that is very specific. They do have trace elements that these guys require, that if you put them in regular potting soil or anything other than something that's been designed specifically for citrus trees, they will lose their trace elements and they will not grow to this size and they will not flower and produce fruit. So make sure that you find something that is designed for citrus trees. They need trace elements. I believe it's iron, zinc, manganese, and magnesium, and there may be 1 or 2 more that I'm forgetting, but the soil or substrate that you use needs to have these trace elements in there in order for your lemon tree to grow healthy and vigorous. Also, I filled the pot up mostly about 3/4 of the way with the organic substrate that was specific for citrus trees, and then I use organic compost for about the rest of it, and then the top layer is about just a little bit is mulch. So just kind of around the top area, 1 inch or 2 or 3 is organic compost. Now, I think EB Stone makes a really good one. Fox Farm has some stuff that you can use for this, but you shouldn't really have any kind of trouble finding a good organic compost. I didn't. Hopefully you all won't either. But that organic compost is very important because it is tougher to burn your roots out with an organic fertilizer as opposed to a synthetic one. You'll burn them out really easily with that if you don't follow the directions to a T. So organic compost can actually stay in your substrate a lot longer than a synthetic fertilizer, so that's worth its weight in gold like that as well. Now another good organic tool to have is Monterey BT. A lot of times you'll notice that these plants have a lot of holes or bite marks in their leaves or on their stems or just kind of all around the plant, and a lot of times you can't see these little pests. They're kind of invisible worms or caterpillars that are hard for us to see. So if you use Monterey BT, that is an organic concoction. You can either apply it to the roots or you can actually spray it to the leaves, kind of like a foliar spray. I think that you'll have to follow the directions on that one. I believe it's a tablespoon to a gallon of water, something like that. Maybe it's an ounce, I'm not sure. Haven't used it in a while. This guy hasn't really been attacked by any kind of pests. Every once in a while I'll see a slug on the pot and kind of knock him off and send him on his way. But thankfully I haven't had any problems with any worms or caterpillars or anything like that. But if you do, Monterey BT is an organic means, so it'll help with the taste of the fruit, and it'll also make sure that nothing continues munching on your leaves or your plant. As I said, you'll kind of spray it on the leaves, and just with any kind of fertilizer, you really should wet the substrate first before you apply it on your soil or on your leaves if you're applying it as a foliar spray, and then add the fertilizer on there either to the soil or to the leaves. And then if you do add it to the soil, I like to go over it and water it really well after I apply the fertilizer. The initial spray is just kind of to wet the soil so it kind of sinks in better and goes more kind of directly to the roots. And then the second spray, you kind of want to water it really well so it'll wash it all down to the bottom of the roots and into the roots as well. So keep that in mind. I like to do the most organic means for fixing any kind of problems I see with these guys. You might be a little bit different, but neem oil can work too, but that stuff kind of stinks. So I do recommend using something like Monterey BT because it is really good and it will help with pests in an organic way. Now, if you continue to see discoloration with the leaves and you use the Epsom salt, I found that chelated iron is really good. I think Grow More makes one, Southern AG makes another one, but these are really beneficial too because you apply it to the soil. I think it's 2 ounces per gallon of water, and it has copper, zinc, magnesium, and nitrogen. Now, people do kind of worry about copper in it, but with chelated iron, all this stuff is broken down and broken down again so that it actually won't really hurt the plant and it'd be more beneficial to it. So it will combat the discoloration of the leaves if the Epsom salt isn't working. And you should know that if you do have leaves with a lot of discoloration to them, they're not producing as much food or energy as they should, so this can actually really hurt your plant, send it in a shock, and probably kill it. So you want to address that problem fairly early on. Like as soon as you start to see several leaves with discoloration, I would go ahead and apply the Epsom salt. Depending on how bad the situation is at first, I would use 1 to 2 tablespoons of Epsom salt per gallon of water. If you do it with kind of warmer water, around bathtub temperatures, not hot, but slightly warmer water, it does dissolve faster and will actually make it into your roots quicker. And again, you'll just kind of go around the circle of the plant so it gets all over into the roots. And the Epsom salt generally works, but if it doesn't, chelated iron is a really good product that will help also. So as you can tell, these guys do require a little bit of attention and a little bit more care than other plants, but they are definitely worth it. They smell really good, they taste really good, they produce really juicy, ripe, all around good lemons to have and enjoy. So I really do love the lemon tree. It is probably my favorite of the citrus trees, and for good reason. I mean, that's a really pretty contrast between the really dark kind of limeish green leaves with the ripe yellow of the lemons, and it's just very pretty, and they smell really good. So it is a beneficial tree to have. Like I said, I kind of want to try to see if I can't maybe do a little bonsai with it, but I'm going to let him grow in more and see how full he gets, and then kind of go from there to see whether or not I can actually do that with it. And if not, I do want to keep it in a kind of smaller container. It is a dwarf variety, so I will be able to do that. And also, these are grafted onto vigorous, kind of hardier roots. So they cannot survive outside in the cold. I know they are a little bit hardier than most plants, but that's how you know you kind of do have a dwarf variety that will actually keep it small. They are grafted on there, so you don't want to cover the graft area up with substrate, but with some mulch, it's not going to hurt it if you cover it up slightly. But with the substrate, you might be able to kind of invite more disease in. I know with mulch, sometimes you got to worry about fungus, but if you kind of keep an eye on that and squash it in earlier stages, fungus is kind of healthy for some plants. But with a dwarf variety right around the grafting zone, I wouldn't take a chance with it. So if you do see anything kind of growing around in there, I would kind of just pick it out and try to keep it as organic as possible. But other than that, you really shouldn't have too big a problem with it. But in the spirit of talking about inviting in rot or disease, you want to keep an eye on branches as well, especially branches that kind of cross, because as they grow and they cross, they can rub each other kind of raw, and then it'll be easier for disease or fungus or anything like that to kind of work its way into the plant and slowly destroy your plant. And it's very important that with all these big, nicer leaves, that you do leave some room in there and pruning with the branches so that light can get to the other leaves and air can kind of get through there better. Pests have a harder time with a plant that has more airflow through it, so you won't have to really worry about spider mites or anything like that. So you do kind of want to actively prune your plant. Mine is fairly young, so I'm giving it a break this year. And next season, around spring, I will take a closer look at it and see how it fared over the winter time and see if I need to kind of prune things back. But right now, I think I'm in the safe zone. Now I'm just more worried about the leaves, so I'm addressing that, and I will keep you updated to let you know how it's panning for me and what I'm going to do next if this problem doesn't really work out and how to do it. Like I said, I basically told you, so we'll see where it goes from there. Now, with substrates, these guys do like it to be slightly acidic. I think they prefer around 6 to 7 pH, so Epsom salt can help with the acidity also. If not, there are some products out there that you can use to boost the acidity of your plant, but you don't want to use much. You just want to use a little bit, and you kind of just apply it to the top. You can actually pull your substrate back, your mulch, and then add it in there and then water it really well, and it will actually help boost the acidity for your plant. So that is also something that you can do if you're having problems with discoloration of the leaves or just any other kind of problem in general with it. Acidity will help the all-around well-being of the plant, so that is also something you can do in addition to fertilizing your plant. Now keep in mind, these are evergreen trees. Even when you bring them in from the summertime in the fall and winter, they shouldn't be losing their leaves. Generally with some citrus trees, I think their leaves can stay on for about 3 years before they do fall off if they're not sick or injured. kind of like mine are right now. But that's why you want to keep it fairly humid around them with a pebble tray or a humidifier and a couple sprays through the wintertime, and that'll help them stay on there as well. So as well with other plants in the wintertime, especially around August in Kentucky, I stop feeding all my other plants that are outside for the wintertime, but I'm going to bring these guys in about a month, and I'll continue to feed them through the wintertime because life kind of really goes on as normal for these guys when you bring them in. So they need to be watered regularly and they need to be fed regularly also. I believe that's almost everything I really want to talk about with the lemon trees. The only other thing I was going to say is they are beneficial plants to have and teach kids with. They're not just a beautiful kind of well-smelling fruit, but they are kind of really good plants to have and fun to grow and teach everybody else more about citrus trees and trees in general. So I do recommend you get a Meyer lemon tree, and there are several other dwarf varieties out there. You can go to your local garden center and ask them where the dwarf sections are, and you'll see what other kind of plants they have out there. Barris lime trees are a good one, Tahitian limes, Meyer lemons, and there are several other ones out there. But make sure you do buy them from a reputable dealer so that you don't have any problems that I've been having with this rescue one. But I think it's going along fairly well, considering it was a rescue plant, and when I first got him, it really wasn't in the best condition. Now he's added on a bunch more leaves, had a problem with some magnesium, but I think we're kind of taking some steps in the positive direction. Pests, you want to watch out for spider mites, aphids that might be down in the substrate. Scale can be a problem, and slugs. And again, when dealing with pests, you just want to kind of keep it as organic as possible. But if not, there are other products out there that you can use. I will say use them sparingly. Follow the directions. Some of them you do have to kind of shake up before you use them. And you don't want to kill your plant, so do it slowly at first and make sure your plant will survive it. Kind of test an area on a leaf or something. But other than that, that's really it. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Let me know, leave me a comment if you've ever had any kind of success or failures with the lemon tree or just any kind of citrus trees in general. Hit the subscribe button or the bell next to it, that way you'll know anytime that I've uploaded a new video. Other than that, you guys take it easy, have a good one. Thanks again guys, and don't forget, always plant prudently. Thank you YouTube.